A millionaire had asked his daughter to choose a new mother from 5 wealthy women, but in the end, he himself chose the black cleaning woman after discovering the truth about who had really cared for his little girl. "That woman shouldn't even be in the same room with us," Jessica Ashworth whispered to the other candidates, watching Keisha Williams quietly sweep up shards of crystal from the marble floor of the Blackwood estate. The glass had been accidentally knocked over during lunch by one of the 5 high society ladies competing to become the new wife of widowed millionaire David Blackwood. Keisha, 28, had only been working at the Grand Atlanta mansion for 3 months. Yet she had already transformed the life of Emma, the 7-year-old girl who had lost her mother in a car accident the year before. What the candidates didn't know was that every cruel word, every contemptuous glance, every attempt to humiliate Keisha was being carefully observed by someone else, someone carrying secrets far deeper than they could imagine. "Daddy, why are those women so mean to Miss Keisha?" Emma had asked that morning, hiding behind the office door. Her innocent question kept echoing in David's mind as he watched through security cameras, seeing Keisha insulted by the 5 women who had arrived 2 weeks earlier to take part in what he called the wife selection. The idea had come from Emma's therapist: let her live with different women for a month and choose who she wanted as her mother. David had carefully picked 5 women from elite circles: a lawyer, a doctor, a businesswoman, a society lady, and an architect. All were white, wealthy, and flawless on paper. But from the very first day, something troubling unfolded. The 5 women, led by the vicious Jessica Ashworth, heiress to an oil fortune, declared a silent war against Keisha. Not because she posed any real threat, after all she was just the help, but because Emma clearly preferred spending time with Keisha over any of them. "That child needs to learn about social order early on," said Priscilla Montgomery, the lawyer, during a dinner party when she thought no one was listening. "It's important she understands who truly belongs in her class." What they didn't know was that David had planted microphones all over the house after noticing Emma's strange behavioral changes. The little girl, who had only just begun to laugh again, had suddenly returned to nightmares and panic attacks. Keisha, who held a degree in education but had taken a cleaning job to support her ailing mother, never imagined that her simple kindness toward Emma would spark such cruelty. Each morning, as she prepared breakfast, she overheard poisonous remarks about people who don't know their place and bad influences on children from respectable families. But there was one thing those women never realized: in Keisha's eyes burned a quiet determination forged from years of surviving prejudices far harsher than theirs. And when she bowed her head at their insults, it wasn't submission. It was strategy, the patience of someone who knew that the sweetest revenge only came to those who waited for the right moment. If you find this story compelling, where prejudice turns back on the prejudiced, don't forget to subscribe. Because those women had no idea that the days of humiliating Keisha were numbered, and their downfall would be more spectacular than anything they could imagine. Meanwhile, Isabella's car keys had mysteriously vanished. "It's for your own good," Richard declared over breakfast, not even bothering to look at his daughter. "Until the social media hysteria dies down, you're staying here." Isabella watched her father calmly read the financial pages, as if he hadn't just turned their home into a prison for his own child. "And how long do you think this will last?" she asked. "As long as it takes. I've hired a crisis management firm. A few weeks from now, no one will even remember this fiasco." What Richard didn't realize was that Isabella had learned to become invisible a long time ago, long before the accident. For years, she had quietly watched the business meetings held at home, absorbing every detail her father assumed she ignored. After she became paralyzed, that invisibility only deepened. People spoke in front of her as though she didn't exist. That afternoon, while Richard was in a video conference in his office, Isabella quietly logged onto the company Wi-Fi with a laptop he didn't even know she owned. The password was laughable: the company's name plus the founding year. She typed in an email address she knew by heart: alexandra.zin@investigativejournalism.org. "Alex, it's Bella. It's time." Within 5 minutes, a reply came. "Finally. I've been waiting 2 years. Do you have everything?" For the first time in days, Isabella smiled. Alexander Torres, a prize-winning investigative journalist, had tried many times to expose the truth about Richardson Tech, only to be blocked by expensive lawyers and political influence. They first crossed paths by chance at a disability rights seminar, where Isabella, frustrated by her father's hollow platitudes, quietly slipped David some information about the company's true operations. Meanwhile, David's reality was growing darker by the day. He had lost 2 job offers in the span of a week, both withdrawn at the last minute after background checks. His landlord began receiving anonymous calls questioning his financial stability. One afternoon, Sophia looked up at him after school. "Daddy, why were those moms whispering about us? Did we do something wrong?" David closed his eyes for a moment, then answered softly, "No, sweetheart. Sometimes the powerful get angry when others dare to be kind." The phone rang again. David picked up in silence, bracing for yet another threat. But this time a different female voice came through. "Mr. Williams, my name is Alexandra Torres. I'm a journalist. I'd like to talk to you about what happened at the cafe. I want nothing to do with the press. I understand your concern, but I'm not like the others. I have information that could completely change the situation, and I have reason to believe your family is in real danger." David hesitated. What kind of danger? The kind men like Richard Richardson create when they feel threatened. "I can be at your home within an hour." At that very moment in his penthouse, Richard was holding an emergency meeting with his crisis management team. The room was packed with high-priced attorneys and PR strategists. "The situation is under control," Marcus Webb, the communications director, reported. "We've hired 3 major influencers to post subtle criticisms painting the Williams family as opportunists. Public opinion is shifting. And the competitors, have they tried to exploit this? Some cheap shots about corporate social responsibility, but nothing that's affected contracts." Richard nodded, satisfied. "My daughter is isolated without resources. The issue is contained." Just 3 floors below, Isabella was uploading her latest trove of evidence, 5 years of board meeting recordings, where Richard and his partners openly discussed strategies to optimize poor communities through forced redevelopment rigging, government contracts, even sabotaging smaller rivals. Her phone buzzed. A message from Alexandra. "Got it. This is pure gold. Are you sure you want to do this? Once it's out, there's no turning back." Isabella typed her reply without hesitation. "My father has underestimated me my whole life. It's time he paid for it." That night, while Richard raised a glass to what he believed was his total victory over his daughter's problem, Isabella finished organizing 2 years' worth of evidence-discriminatory emails, fraudulent contracts, damning recordings, and financial documents exposing a network of corruption and systemic prejudice. The man who thought he had silenced his daughter by locking her away had, without realizing, given her the time and space to meticulously prepare his downfall. Richard Richardson had made a fatal mistake underestimating someone who had spent 2 years learning that real power doesn't come from bank accounts or car keys, but from explosive information in the hands of someone with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. The article went live at 6 a.m. Tuesday, precisely when Richard usually sipped his Colombian coffee and skimmed the financial news. The headline on the homepage of the country's biggest investigative outlet made the cup tremble in his hand. "The Hypocrisy Empire: How Philanthropist Richard Richardson Built His Fortune by Devastating Black Communities." With trembling fingers, Richard clicked the link. The first image was a high-resolution photo of him in an executive meeting, clearly taken without his knowledge. Directly beneath it was an audio file. His own voice played crystal clear. "They don't know the true value of the land. We throw them scraps, they take it, we make millions. Capitalism working at its finest." His stomach dropped. That meeting had taken place 3 years ago in his private office. How in the world had it been recorded? He scrolled frantically, finding document after document, proving years of contract manipulation, bribery of city inspectors, and deliberate strategies to force low-income families into selling their homes for pennies. Worst of all were hundreds of emails, all digitally signed by him, discussing plans to cleanse entire neighborhoods through forced urban redevelopment. In one letter to the mayor, he had written, "We need to accelerate relocations before they can regroup. Offer laughable compensation, and use whatever pressure is necessary to make them comply." Richard staggered into his office, legs trembling. "Marcus," he shouted for his communications chief. "Have you seen this? Where did they get these files?" Marcus Webb's face was ashen, his laptop open to the same article. "Mr. Richardson, this is catastrophic. There's evidence of dozens of financial crimes. And the recordings, the quality is flawless. It's unbelievable! Richard roared, his usual composure shattering. At that moment, Marcus pointed to a small line at the bottom of the piece, a discreet acknowledgement. Special thanks to an anonymous source who spent 2 years systematically gathering evidence. 2 years. The blood drained from Richard's face. 2 years exactly since Isabella's accident. And then she appeared at the office doorway, her wheelchair gliding softly across the Italian marble. A tablet rested in her hands, and a calm smile spread across her lips. "Good morning, Father," she said evenly. "Have you seen the news?" Richard stared at her, frozen. "It was... you... you did this. For 2 years you treated me like broken furniture shoved into a corner. You spoke in front of me as if I were invisible. You held meetings in the next room thinking I couldn't hear. You forgot that before the accident I had a business degree and I was always watching everything you did. Isabella, you don't understand the consequences. I understand them perfectly. Enough to send full copies of everything to the U.S. Attorney's Office, the IRS, and the FBI. Oh, and I also sent them to David Williams. Remember him, the nobody who sang Happy Birthday with me. He graduated from MIT in computer science digital security specialist. He's the one who helped authenticate all the evidence. Richard staggered, clutching the desk for support. You've destroyed everything. The company, the family, our name. No, I've repaired everything. You built your empire, crushing the dreams of people like David. Hundreds of families lost their homes because of your greed disguised as charity. Richard's phone rang non-stop, shareholders, lawyers, reporters, all demanding answers for the biggest corporate scandal of the decade. That afternoon, Richardson Tech stock plunged 87%. Government contracts were suspended. The board called an emergency meeting to vote on Richard's immediate removal. Meanwhile, Isabella picked up a call from David. The article changed everything. 3 companies offered me jobs today. Sophia was right, you're remarkable. David, there's something you should know. At that cafe when you and Sophia sang me happy birthday, I already knew who you were. After my father belittled you, I researched your work, your potential, everything he refused to acknowledge. And you still wanted to be friends because of that. You showed me that dignity is priceless, and I want you to know not every Richardson is a monster. That night, while Richard spent his first night in federal custody on charges of money laundering and racketeering, Isabella dined at a family restaurant with David and Sophia. For the first time in 2 years, she felt truly free. Richard Richardson had spent a lifetime underestimating those he considered beneath him, so blinded by arrogance he failed to see that he had raised the very person who would orchestrate his downfall, the daughter he dismissed, now the architect of his most spectacular collapse. 6 months later, Richard sat behind federal prison bars staring at the headlines that had obliterated any hope of redemption. Former Richardson Tech CEO, sentenced to 15 years for criminal conspiracy and money laundering. The company he had built over 3 decades was now under new leadership. The board had unanimously appointed Isabella Richardson as CEO, a decision unimaginable just a year earlier when she was dismissed as the troubled daughter in a wheelchair. In the visitation room, Isabella entered with a poise Richard had never seen. "I came to show you something." She set a tablet on the table, displaying the latest quarterly report. Profits are up 42% in the past 6 months. Do you know why Richard stayed silent, pride-wounded, refusing to ask? Because we stopped spending millions covering up crimes and started investing in real social programs. I hired David Williams as Chief of Social Responsibility. You remember him, don't you? At the mention of his name, Richard's fists clenched. That man knows nothing about corporate business. Isabella laughed, a genuine sound Richard hadn't heard in years. He knows about dignity, about treating people like human beings, something you never learned. She swiped to a slideshow of new initiatives. We're funding affordable housing for the very communities you once sought to destroy. We've created a $15 million restitution fund for families you harmed. Richard whispered, his voice breaking, "You're dismantling my life's work." "No, I'm saving what's left. The company has never been stronger or more respected." She paused, meeting his defeated gaze. "Do you know the first thing I did as CEO? I launched a full scholarship fund for underprivileged youth in technology. We already have over 200 applications." That same day across the city, David Williams walked into his new office on Richardson Tech's executive floor, something that had seemed impossible 6 months earlier. Sophia played with colorful blocks in the corner, occasionally rushing to the window to watch the bustling city below. Daddy, can I see Bella today? She asked, using the nickname she had given Isabella. Of course, sweetheart, David smiled. She said she has a surprise for you, and the surprise was bigger than he could have imagined. Isabella had launched a pilot music education program for underprivileged children, inspired by the passion for music she had seen in Sofia during their cafe conversations. The city's first community conservatory opened in a building once illegally seized by Richard, now returned to the public and transformed into a cultural center. You didn't have to do all this, David said that afternoon, as they watched Sophia test instruments in the brand new studio. No, I had to, Isabella replied with a quiet smile. For 2 years, you reminded me that kindness still exists even when everything seems lost. Now I want hundreds of other children to have the opportunities my father tried to steal from them. Isabella's transformation was complete. The woman once dismissed as a public relations liability now appeared regularly in Forbes and Fortune as one of the most innovative female CEOs of her generation. Her wheelchair was no longer seen as a limitation, but rather as a symbol that true leadership comes from overcoming barriers and creating opportunities for others. 3 years after that fateful meeting at the cafe, Isabella and David were married in a simple yet profoundly meaningful ceremony. The venue was the conservatory they had founded together, now flourishing with more than 500 children enrolled. Sophia, now 8 years old, served as the flower girl, proudly wearing a dress she had chosen herself. During the ceremony, Isabella delivered a speech that everyone would remember. 3 years ago, my father told me I would never be anything more than a burden to this family. Today, I run a company worth $2 billion. I am marrying the most genuine man I have ever known, and I have a daughter who teaches me every day that love knows no boundaries. She paused, looking out at the audience filled with families who had benefited from the company's new social programs. Sometimes the very people who try to tear us down are the ones who inspire us to rise. Richard, still serving his sentence at the time, heard about the wedding through a letter Isabella had sent. It was not written with malice or mockery, but as an invitation to reflect. If one day you wish to meet your granddaughter without prejudice or judgment, my door will always be open. But only when you understand that dignity has no color, no social class, and no physical limit. 2 weeks later, Richard replied with a single handwritten line on prison stationery. I'm proud of you for the woman you've become, even if it's in spite of me. 5 years after that fateful cafe meeting, Richardson Tech had become a global model of corporate social responsibility. David led a team of 50 dedicated to community programs. Isabella was frequently invited to speak at international conferences on inclusive leadership and resilience. Sophia, now 10, played the violin at the conservatory that bore her name, a gift from her stepmother to the child who had planted the first seed of kindness in her loneliest moment. The cafe where it all began was still open. At the corner table, a small plaque now read, "The Table of Kindness," a tribute to the meeting that changed destinies. A reminder that simple acts of humanity can spark extraordinary transformations. At 71, Richard was released from prison, a changed man. His first stop was the conservatory where he found Sophia practicing for an upcoming recital. The girl looked at him curiously, free of resentment. "You're Bella's dad, right?" "Yes," Richard replied, his voice trembling. "And you must be Sophia. Do you want to hear my song? Bella says music can heal what's broken." As the first chords filled the air, Richard finally understood the lesson that had taken him a lifetime to grasp. True power doesn't come from stepping on others, but from lifting them up. His daughter had transformed his legacy of destruction into an empire of hope. Isabella Richardson had proven that the sweetest revenge was not in destroying those who had hurt you, but in building something so beautiful, so meaningful that cruelty itself became irrelevant. She had not only transcended the limits others tried to impose on her, but redefined what it meant to be strong, successful, and truly powerful. Isabella's story reminds us that when the arrogant dismiss our capacity to grow, they unknowingly hand us the fuel to become what they never could: extraordinary. If this journey of transformation and justice has inspired you, subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove humanity's greatest strength is born in the very moments others try to convince us we are weak.